Ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply honored and privileged to speak on this special occasion to celebrate Ratan Tata, his life, his legacy. I am grateful, profoundly grateful, to Chairman Tata Sons, the Tata family, for this unique opportunity. I was associated with Ratan for over 4 decades. His life remained as inscrutable as indeed his legacy, depending on one's perspective. A brilliant account of which the Chairman Tata Sons gave. In the film, equally, depending on the perspective, is it the Ratan, the compassionate you are looking at, who brought relief to every home affected by the profound tragedy? To Suma Varghese, for instance, the moving account. Or, for instance, the surprise visit to receive his 2 favorite dogs, Tito and Goa, at the Victoria Terminal station. Or, for instance, to decline, in one of the obituaries I read, the invitation from King Charles because one of his dogs was not well. Ratan, for his micro-memory details, in remembering to me years after the menu of a meal he may have had with you years ago. Ratan the abstemious, who believed in frugality and in his abstemious lifestyle. Or Ratan the soft-spoken, understated, but always with a remarkable sense of soft-spoken aggressiveness. A perseverance to stay the course, to see the difficulties through. He deeply believed in what he said. Life must be with ups and downs. If it was not, a straight line in the ECG, he said, means you are no more around. Ratan had outlined his vision for the Tata in a letter very far, long ago, 17th of March, 1978, outlining what he wanted to do. Is it Ratan the innovator, Ratan the inquisitive? Ratan himself acknowledged this in many ways. When in writing one of the endorsements for the many books which have been written about him, he said, one book is not enough. You go ahead and give your perspective. So whether it is these books which have been written already or may be written, there will be one unanimous conclusion. He did not fulfill or could not stay in any stereotype in which you would wish to keep him. My own relationship with Ratan evolved over time. Each of our meetings was warm, full of ideas. He left you with a positive feeling. Ratan was 10 years old when India became independent. India was struggling for the 3 F's: food, fuel, and fertilizer. As Ratan grew up, contrary to what his father's wishes were, he preferred to go to the United States and the obvious place, United Kingdom. Why? This is because he had seen the last few years of the colonial rule. This is because he wanted to get away from the old world to the new world. Wanted to get over the baggage, the colonial legacy, as he wanted to embrace a world built by immigrants, a world which would be based on innovation, on modernity of ideas. Indeed, he did not want to be burdened by the past. Everything that Ratan did, he said, I do not want the future to be a hostage of the past. He deeply believed in this as he chose the Riverdale School and later the Cornell University, pursuing his course in architecture. He said that I do not believe in taking right decisions. I take the decisions and make them right. Indeed, in selecting the United States instead of United Kingdom, history proved him right. During the period of 1979, which was becoming a period when Delhi had moved to oppressive controls on exports and imports, India had begun to move away from market to live not in comparative efficiency, but to forgive sloppiness, losing out on comparative advantage. Ratan had expressed his frustration that it took 5 years for the government to grant the permission for the first computers to be made by Nelco. He had expressed this unhappiness in the 80s, in unhappiness in multiple ways in his first strategic plan of 81, which he scribbled through as he nursed his mother at the Sloan Kettering Hospital in the United States. When I met Ratan in 1982 in Tokyo, Ratan shared the frustration of what the debilitating restrictions had done to India, how difficult it would have been for anyone to secure Japanese and foreign investment at a time with this over-regulatory mindset. He recognized that things will change. He had a visionary vision. He realized that there would be inevitable winds of change which he perceived before their time. So the next time when I met him was after the visit of Mrs. Indira Gandhi, for which she had come on a preparatory mission to Japan within 1985. He had begun to look for nascent energies. He had begun to look for modern systems for the automobile and for the other sectors, key sectors of the economy. The first strategic plan was really designed to ensure that the integrity of the institutions would not be lost. His second strategic plan was to really prepare the Tata Sons for economic liberalization. The first strategic plan covered 90 to 96. India began its liberalization in 1991. He was ahead of India's own liberalization effort, the architect of which, as we have noted, has passed away just 2 days ago, for which we have paid a tribute. When I was closely working with Dr. Manmohan Singh in the Ministry of Commerce and the Ministry of Finance at that time, Ratan had expressed his frustration at the opposition of a group of industrialists, the so-called Bombay Plan, which had enjoyed the sheltered protection and flourished in the inefficiencies which that protection had given. Ratan was forthright in support of India's liberalization effort. He was well opposed to any feeling of the so-called Bombay Plan and distanced himself far away from it. But as the chairman of Tata Sons very rightly said, he was an entrepreneur, a capitalist with compassion. When, for instance, he visited me in Bihar in 2006 and 2007, he was driven by the two primordial American values: next man first, paying back to society. He recognized that TISCO and TELCO had made a far-reaching difference to the industrialization process of Eastern India, and yet Bihar had remained poor in abject poverty. This puzzled him. It puzzled him why the spillover effects did not come to Bihar. And he came to Bihar with a vision for Bihar. In many ways, he was equally a believer in Atmanirbhar Bharat, for instance, in the efforts to make the first Indian car, Indica, and then subsequently for mass consumption in Nano, or for instance, in ensuring that the salt that the Tata Chemicals made would be fortified by iodine and iron to take care of deficiencies. Or for instance, this super thermal Mudra power station at that time, based on the early feelings of international value-added chain depending on coal supplies from Indonesia. Much, much later, many who are present here will recognize that during the period of Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Ratan was made the chairman of the Commission on Investment. Little later, he accepted to be the head of a task force. Unlike other industrialists, he selected a somewhat futuristic subject. Few would remember he selected the task force on information technology and innovation. He saw the power of innovation before others could. Little later, when I was serving and working as member planning commission, he volunteered to chair a group on hydrogen energy. We now think hydrogen energy should be everybody's interest. But Ratan saw it way before hydrogen energy had become in movement. While business was his passion, and it was his passion, he always recognized the power of mind over matter. He served as a trustee of the Cornell University, was deeply involved with the Harvard Business School, deeply involved with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He was a member